Hi, and thank you all for joining us today. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, I'm so excited to have my guest back again, Candace Craw-Goldman. And of course, just as a quick reminder, I know you just heard it in the intro, but it's very important for me to let you guys know because I absolutely love this network and I feel very privileged to be a part of it. So you are listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled, where hopefully we can help you discover your truth. Today, we're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. So many of you will be listening, watching. We do stream on all major social media platforms. So be sure to head on over to YouTube where you can subscribe to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. That would mean the world to me if you do. And if you're listening on the radio, when you have time, please head on over and check out Candace's website and all of her information. Of course, I'll have that streaming on the ticker below, and she will be explaining who she is and all that good stuff as soon as I bring her on board. Today, we're going to talk about a mind-blowing quantum healing session that I experienced through the guidance of Candace. And of course, it was mind-blowing for me, and I really wanted you guys to kind of get a good understanding of my experience and what I went through and see maybe if it'll work for you as well. It still stays with me practically every day. And we'll talk more in detail about that. Let me get Candace up here. Candace.
Hi. Gosh, it's been a while. It was in January. January we had our session, yeah?
Yeah, it's been a minute. I know you and I both kind of had that cold flu thing that was going around, which was just awful. So we won't even talk about that and give it any power, but it was just awful. So that kind of delayed things a little, or else I would have had you on sooner. But now, knock on wood, thank the Lord above, we're both doing okay. Everything, as my mantra is, I say every day, everything is fine in this now moment. So that's all that matters. But I want you to please and thank you reintroduce yourself, because I'm going to put links, and that reminds me, let me get the ticker going, because I want folks to be able to, there we go.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, I want folks to know what we're talking about today.
Oh, how exciting.
And your websites, where they can find you. And again, for folks listening on the radio, please be sure and head on over to YouTube. You can find this channel or Facebook or any of social media. Well, I also air this on X. It's all LinkedIn even, so you can find it wherever you choose. And head on over to quantumhealers.com, where you can find out more about our lovely guest, Candace. But I'm going to take myself off for a minute or two and just have you kind of reiterate your work with the beloved Dolores Cannon and how you kind of got your foot started in this whole thing and where you're at today. And then I'll jump in and we'll talk about this. Oh,
the other way around, I guess.
All right.
Push the wrong button. Okay, well, hi, everyone. So my name is Candace Craw Goldman, and I am a quantum healer. What's a quantum healer? Well, a consciousness explorer, basically. And I got my start with Dolores Cannon 17 years ago. And I got my start with energy healing and all this metaphysical stuff, actually, well, many decades, but starting in the year 2000, I had a chronic pain condition and I found Reiki. And I just then started looking at all of these alternative healing modalities and different ways of looking at things. And Reiki was great, but it didn't do much for me. And 8 years after that, in 2008, is when I had this profound spiritual experience that led me directly to Dolores Cannon. And I had a session with her. And not only that, I began working with her very shortly thereafter as an assistant during her live classes and program creation. You all might have heard of Dolores Cannon before, QHHT, Quantum Healing hypnosis technique is what she is known for. And kind of a way to introduce that is past life regression, because that's how she started. Started out past lives, but it's so much more. It's entering into the realm of realities and consciousness and other worlds and other dimensions and all of that. And so I worked with her very closely for 6.5 years before her passing. And then after she passed, I still carried on with the work, but I began to expand it. And I came up with my own approach, which is a little more flexible, a little more alchemical, a little more heart-based, because we know the heart is so important. And the field, the heart field and energetics that are connected to the human heart, humans are just beginning to understand how important that is. And I built that into my process that I call BQH, or Beyond Quantum Healing. And what happens in Beyond Quantum Healing session? Well, Carol Ann will be telling you, but it's all kinds of things. It can be a past life. It could be a revisit of something that happened to you in your current life. It could be getting information or having conversations from other energies or people who have departed, or angelic presences, all of that. And of course, since there's that word healing in there, all kinds of fantastical healing opportunities are available using this approach of Beyond Quantum Healing, which is this consciousness exploration. And that's pretty much it. I have done thousands of sessions in all of these years, and Carol Ann's was memorable.
It most certainly was. If I could just jump in, I've never had anything like that happen to me in my life, or experienced any type of like metaphysical healing thing. I mean, I've always meditated and things like on my own, but it was, and you'll forgive me if I struggle to find the words, because sometimes imagery and feeling is very hard to explain. So you'll just have to excuse me and correct me along the way. But it stays with me almost every day still. And this is, yes. And this is back. Yep. And this is back in January. Mm-hmm. And I've had definite, profound changes, mostly in the way that I think about. Now, I found this very interesting, mostly in the way that I think about myself as a spiritual being rather than a physical being. And I'll explain as we go along. I did experience, like, first of all, I want to thank you, because it was absolutely, and I use the word mind-blowing because, again, words fall short in describing what it was. And I would have to say that in all my years on this planet, I don't think, even when I saw grief counselors after my husband passed away, and just therapists for anxiety or whatever, I never felt as closely paid attention to and listened to as much as I did that day under that session.
Wow. What a profound gift you've just given me. You know, I'm not sure I've ever been thanked in quite that way, quite that specifically. Thank you, Carol Ann. That's beautiful. Well, you know, we spend a lot of time together in these sessions.
Yeah.
And they're very intimate. And you were brilliant at it, because there were times I remember, and I have the transcript, although, you know, it's very long to have it right here. Look at it. You would say something, and then you'd be like, why did that happen? That was so weird. Why did I say that? I mean, that kind of stuff. And what's brilliant about that is many people wouldn't even do that. They would think about it being some sort of brain glitch or something, and they would push away whatever it was, whatever information that was right there. And I mean, you had some odd, the way yours started was very odd, but you know, I've seen things like that before. But rather than dismiss it, rather than make it into something else that you might have expected, you simply told me exactly what was happening. And that My dear Carol Ann, is the best that a client can be. And you'd be surprised how many clients find that difficult because they want to fit some sort of norm. They want it to fit something they might have seen on YouTube or read in a book somewhere. And I would have to say, your session, like almost every other, was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. And I'm thousands of sessions in all of these years, you know? So.
Yeah, it was, and it's funny because I remember so much of it. And even under that like hypnotic state, it's interesting how you get moments of clarity. Like that first week, I started remembering, and I didn't want to watch the video because I wanted to not be influenced. I wanted to just like kind of remember and absorb it on my own, like that kind of thing. I'm sure everybody deals with it differently, but yeah, it was, a lot of it became clearer as like the week or two passed. So I have to say to folks, when you do this session, just kind of, I would think to expect that, it's kind of like you're remembering stuff that you intentionally suppress maybe, or I don't know. That's just the way it seemed to me. Like in the beginning, everything was clown world. It was cartoon world. And it was so odd. And you had mentioned that you've had folks experience that. So what I was seeing was like my universe as a cartoon, like where I'm in, where I fit in was just all colorful, like colors I've never seen. So that was really crazy. It was almost like they were pure in their true form that I got to see in my mind's eye. So that gave me an appreciation just for color, like that we're not seeing things the way they really are. Maybe, I don't know.
That's one way of looking at it. And a lot of people, by the way, who visit what, is termed the new earth, they say there's colors there that don't connect to colors that we see now. So there's that component as well. But everything was cartoon except for one thing. Do you remember what the one thing was?
I think it was my hair, right?
It was your hair. And you were like, this is so weird. Yeah. What is going on? But then when we talked to your higher self at the end, it made some sense.
Yeah. Very bizarre. And I loved it. So it was bizarre in a good way. And again, my verbiage is not going to be the exact expression of how it felt, but bizarre because it was so different. Like, how can I explain? You're looking at a world where everything is not the way it is in this world. And there's one factor that is the same, and it's your hair. So like, just interesting. So interesting. But I thought about that in a lot after the session was over. Like, what does this mean? What lesson is this? And I kept trying to make sense of it. And then I just let it go because I thought I was maybe pushing it or forcing it, and I shouldn't be doing that. Mm-hmm. And then when I kind of let it go, it started clicking in that, to me, the message I got from it was that this world, in which I call the Matrix, is not really what we think it is. And don't hold on to it so tightly. And that impacted me greatly because I have a different way of, like, when something goes wrong, I may get upset about it for like 10 seconds where I used to get upset for an hour. So it really did change the way, because I kept thinking, well, none of this is real. You know what's real. You know what's real, Carol Ann. So it did help me a lot, just right out of the gate.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it can be very symbolic, these sessions, and that apparently that's what that section was for you. Just very, very symbolic, as well as past lives can be symbolic for other people, or past lives can be actually, you can go and research and find out whether or not they're absolutely authentic. They can be authentic lives. So my teacher, Dolores Cannon, when she first started doing this, she was obsessed with, are these authentic lives? And sometimes she couldn't, how could you look up somebody who lived 300 years ago? Some things like that, especially if it wasn't a well-known person. But she started having some experiences, including one of her own past lives that she looked up. And it's an interesting story. She went to a past life where she found herself in a cemetery, and it's a whole involved story, but because she knew what was going on, meaning she was having the regression, she was looking around and she was trying to figure out where she was in this past life. And the cemetery actually was called Dolores Cemetery, believe it or not, which was really fascinating. Yeah, there's some things there. Anyway, because of that, she was able to reference the name of that cemetery, look up where she was, match what she saw, and validate what she found out in that past life regression. So she was obsessed with that in the early days of her work. And then later she absolutely did what most of us do now, which is, it might be real, it might not be real. The only thing that's really, really important almost all the way across the board is, did it help you? Did it help your life? Who cares if it's real or not? Sure, it can be kind of cool and it can solve some mysteries sometimes. But the most important thing is just to help people in their life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I did experience moments of that past life thing. And, it wasn't by any means like the whole experience, but it was, I think, an integral part of that, because and I'm not embarrassed to talk about it, because it just is what it is, and it's what I experienced. So,
great. So to put it into context for the listeners, you basically, and this is very common. You had, I think, from my best recollection and my small note sheet right here, you had the cartoon world experience. Then you had this experience where you found yourself visiting an actual scene from your early life.
Yep.
But there was information about that came through later. And then you had the experience with the other beings, and so it was kind of like 3 parts. And then through those 3 parts, and especially as we were in that third part, then we start finding out about, well, why did we do the cartoon world? And why did we visit that one scene from your life, which was pivotal? And a lot of this had to do with some health things, right?
Yes,
and I haven't checked in with you about that. I'm actually very excited about how that came through and how that presented. And I'm hoping you have some further information about it.
Yeah, I for a few days after that, it again took me time to kind of replay and absorb that whole scene and ask myself, like, why was that such a pivotal moment in my life? And it has to do with the fact that I've had asthma since I'm 16. And that's just in case folks are like, what in the world are they talking about? Yeah. And there was a moment in a car ride when I was about 16 that I had with my parents. And shortly after that, I developed asthma. Well, actually, in the car, I found myself not, wheezing and like not feeling well. And it wasn't anything I ate or an allergy or anything. So I always equated it to like an emotional thing, which I truly believe it was, especially after our session. So that was a whole big awakening thing, because I always said, oh, I have allergies and it has to be from allergies. I don't think that anymore. I really don't. I don't think that. And the other pivotal clarity that I had is that I always looked at myself as a human who suffers from asthma. But now I don't see myself that way anymore. Like, it changed the way, like, I don't attach that victimhood to it.
Fantastic.
It's just something, and this is how I kind of look at it. It's an experience that I was meant to have. For what reason, I don't know. And maybe I'll never know.
Yeah.
But it was pivotal in my life during the course of my life. And having this session allowed me to remove the victimage. And I don't look at myself as, Carol Ann who has asthma. I look at myself now as somebody who experiences asthmatic condition, but that doesn't define who I am. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's a terrific beginning to even and with letting the whole thing go, right?
Yeah.
Because to put it in perspective for your listeners, Carol Ann already kind of knew that asthma started right then and there. So what was that? And when we went through all of this exploration at the end, we talk to the higher self. It's pretty easy. The formula is pretty easy. It's like, why the cartoon world? Why did we visit that scene in the car? And the higher self, with somebody who is open enough to allow their voice to be used by a higher portion of consciousness from themselves, it was actually pretty brilliant, because your higher self came through. And this is where the past life comes in. It was like, well, she was being blamed for something that wasn't her fault in this past life. And there was a similarity with what was going on, in the storyline when you were 16.
Oh,
And
gosh,
so what happened is that entire past life experience sort of manifested in the body. And do you remember what happened? The person who was blamed for something that they didn't do, the past life, they drowned that person.
Yes.
And doesn't that make sense then? Because then the lungs filled with liquid and you couldn't breathe. And you were just like, oh my gosh. Even in the session, it made so much sense.
It really did, because my whole life I've always felt, and I'm just, to me, there's no shame in saying it. It's like ridiculous to even want to not use the word witch, because like these poor people were victimized and tortured and treated in the most god-awful way. And my heart goes out to each and every one of them. But I felt in a past life that's what happened to me. And I was no one famous. I was no one special. I was just an ordinary woman. And of course, being accused for something that I didn't do, or maybe did do. I'm not sure about that part. But I do, like, I've always felt that I couldn't breathe. Like, and I think a large part of my anxiety manifested in that way, because whenever I would have an anxiety attack, I felt like I couldn't breathe. And to me, it like all connected at that point, which is brilliant. And I absolutely love that, because again, it gave me a sense of freedom from this victimage. And that's like a big deal for me, because that was a huge problem of mine, just as a human being, always feeling like the victim. And I don't want to play that card ever again. And this session really helped me work through that. So God bless you for that.
That's terrific. I'm so pleased to hear that. And it was a wonderful realization for you. Yes. Really unjustly drowned. I cannot tell you how many people have had the experience of having the stone tied to them and thrown in the pond or the river, or being burned at the stake. We make jokes about it. But if you think about the physics of it, the actual physics of it, I believe that in our DNA strands are woven in these stories of our past lives. And when we are placed in certain situations, sometimes, that story comes to life through
Yes.
the body element. And I think that's, what we discovered with you.
It was amazing because I started remembering, like, just out of nowhere, I could just be sitting here working, and all of a sudden I would see this cage with this person in it being submerged in like a lake. So
Oh,
it,
wow.
I started seeing that event with some clarity. And instead of
Wow.
going, oh, that's your imagination. Now, where did I ever see that? Like most of the people,
Yeah.
when you read about them historically, were like weighted with stones and things.
Right. Yeah.
For me, I saw this like metal cage that I was put in, which is bizarre. I don't even know if they had stuff like that back then. Was it even possible?
Probably. Yeah. Wow.
Probably. Yeah, weird. And again, I use the word weird because words just, but I absolutely loved the freedom of that, of allowing myself to have these thoughts and these feelings after the session and not feeling ashamed or, oh, I made that up, that kind of thing. No, they were very, very genuine. And by me allowing myself to experience that and not shame it away was so freeing, Candace.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
great. A lot of people still do have these profound sessions, and then in the end they go, "Oh, come on, that didn't really happen, did it? That wasn't really real, was it?" And sometimes it takes a while to accept some of that. Some of it is societal pressures. If you
absolutely.
if you have been told your whole life that these things are just your imagination and that they aren't valid, that's a lot of programming for a lot of years. And even if you're genuinely curious or genuinely had an experience, that programming runs pretty hard and deep, and it does in society as well. So even that you decided to try something like this, that makes you, it's only a small percentage, but I have to say that percentage is growing, and that percentage is growing particularly since 2020, and even more so since the advent of, are you aware of the podcast called the Telepathy Tapes?
Oh, I sure.
Yeah, I'm deep into the telepathy tapes. I just finished at lesson 8, episode 8. And, as I'm listening to it, I'm getting download after download after download. We've known for a long time that autistic kids were special and that they came here for a reason. Even the ones who, let's say, were fine until a year or a year and a half in, and then they go do something and then suddenly they're autistic. I have a lot of questions about a lot of that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But the more and more I'm thinking about it, first of all, nothing happens without our soul's permission and involvement and agreement. Even if your conscious mind would never want it. I mean, you lost a loved one. I lost my only sibling when he was young and in his 20s, and it devastated my family. If somebody would have said, you agreed to this, your family agreed to this, well, from a earth standpoint, from a very human standpoint, that sounds absolutely patently ridiculous. And not only that, it sounds insulting and mean. But that's just the human perspective. We're talking about the overarching perspective of the soul, who knows that you are eternal, that knows that this is just one play of the game.
Oh, yeah.
And that this is this is how the soul expands, and this is how your soul family continues to expand even together, because many of you, and this is something else that you learned in your session, right? Team up with members of your family, and you do that over and over and over and over again. And you learn about that. You learn about your history of all the different things that you've done. And then some other times it's like, well, tell me about this person in my life. And that person could be a mother. It could be a spouse. It could be a child, and a lot of times the higher self will come back and say, nope, this is the first lifetime with that person. It's just sort of like, they came on over to this set, and played a part for a while. And so there is some interchanging things like that, but lots of times it's the soul family experiencing stuff and then replaying it and then replaying variations on it. And this is, I'm not a Christian in the sense that I went to church a lot as a kid or had parents who did, because I sure did not. But I know a few Bible verses or two, and I picked up the Bible and I listened to a few things that people who are and who think deeply about the Bible. And I think often about the quote of, my master has many mansions. There are many mansions, and I think that's what that means. There's many houses, there's many realities, and that's what infinite means.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And there were some other very pivotal moments during this session, and maybe we can talk about them. One of them, and just for some clarity, my husband passed away about 3 years ago. And it was and is one of the most difficult, as you mentioned, times in my life. There's not a moment that I'm not grieving over him. So after he passed, I didn't dream about him, not that I could remember. And it upset me terribly that I wasn't able to remember him in my dreams. And I would get up every morning and just be so angry and frustrated. And I would ask before I went to bed at night, like, please come to me in my dream. Nothing. So, and it's funny because we had a pact that whoever passed first would give us a sign, like, come back, that thing. A lot of people do that.
Sure.
And I got nothing, no sign, no nothing from Joseph. And this was just welling inside of me. I felt even more alone, and it just added to the weight of like grief. So during this session, we were talking about spirit guides, I believe. And again, you and I have not spoke about this. This is the very out of the gate. And I'm not any part of your organization. I don't work for you. I have no vested interest other than the fact that I just want to get this out there to folks to let them know what I experience, and hopefully it can help them. And just knowing you, Candace, is a blessing in and of itself. So there's that. But I digress. So during this session, we were talking about spirit guides. And on my left, I saw this, and I'm going to try to describe it the best I can. This glowing, I guess, entity, angelic-like being. I don't remember seeing like big wings or anything like that. It was just this being of light, but I equated it to like an angel-like being. And on my right was my husband. And I saw.
Do you remember what you said? Do you remember what the first thing you said was?
What you mean when I saw him, or just? No.
You were so surprised. You actually said it's not fair.
Oh, I remember that.
And I was like,
I remember that.
It's not fair. And and that there's probably a lot of meanings in there, in that statement. But
and it's funny because I use that term a lot right after his passing. It's not fair that you went here, that kind of thing.
Sure.
So, and I probably still do say that, like, because I talk to Joey now all the time, like all the time. And sometimes I do tell him, it's not fair you left me here. Like, that's what I basically say. And I started dreaming about Joey after that session.
No way you did.
And God. And Candace, I'm getting the chills as I'm telling you this.
Fantastic. I'm so happy.
I could almost cry, seriously, because I remember the first dream where I saw him and remembered it. with such clarity. And he was so real. And I got to touch him and hug him and all that stuff. And a lot of the dream didn't make sense, but that's okay. As long as he was there. I don't know. I guess I was just in my dream, which kind of was like a lucid dream in a way, because it felt so freaking real that I was just thrilled that I got to remember him in my dream and speak with him and hug him. And so that's another huge effect of that session. And since then, I now dream of Joey several times a week, at least, on a minimum 2. And he's like always there. I could have a dream and I will, even if it's for a moment, see Joey, feel Joey. So that alone was a gift that I can't even.
It's the best, isn't it? When I dream about my mom or about Dolores or about my late brother or some friends of mine that have passed, I mean, it is such a gift, because we are really connecting on a different, vibration, a different level, where they're actually, visitations, almost all of them. And interestingly enough, I dreamed about my mom just a couple nights ago, and it was really strange because my dad was with my mother and she was comforting him a little bit. And, my dad's elderly. And well, anyway, it was a fascinating dream. There's nothing more warming to the heart after somebody dies, really, than to be able to feel them in a dream like that, because it's a resonance. That's why it feels so good. That's why you wake up and you go, oh, because not only does it seem real, and not only does it fulfill a hole left in your life, because they resonate in a certain way, and you are matching the resonance, right? So that resonance just stays in your body. And so that's one fantastic outcome of these sessions. Now, not every time, and it's not guaranteed, but it happens so often, and it's so worth an afternoon of trying, right?
Yes, gracious. Another thing. And again, folks can believe me or not, or, choose to whatever, but I'm being gospel truth. I always sleep on my side, and mostly on my right side. And after I started dreaming about Joey, I just had, like, I would go to bed at night and just feel this, like it helped with my grief, Candace. It really did. So for anybody grieving out there over a pet that you lost, a job it could be anything. You have to do this for yourself, because it truly changed my life. So I was laying on my right side, and my arm was out of the blanket, and I just was starting to fall asleep. When you're in that like ether, you're kind of sleeping, but you're just getting there. You're just arriving.
Yeah, it's that thin state. That's a theta brainwave state. It actually, a whole system of healing is built upon that thin line, theta. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was there. Mm-hmm. And I felt on my arm this, like a brush, like a gentle stroke. And I knew it was Joey. I knew it was him. So I immediately jumped up, and I looked towards him, and I said, "Thank you, Joey. It's so comforting to know that you're here with me." And I felt it. I just, like, you feel it to your core.
Yeah.
So there was that. I look at it like a gift. I got a gift. I got a really nice gift.
Oh, there's nothing better. There's just nothing better than that. I'm so pleased. I'm so happy.
Other angelic being still remains kind of like an enigma to me, because sometimes throughout the day, I'll just get a feeling that one of these or this angelic being is part of my spirit tribe, like maybe the dominant person or entity. And I just get that feeling of her, and I want to say her because it felt very feminine. I feel her awareness. So I started listening more to my intuitive self, right? I really did. And I've always been a very intuitive person. I've had so many experiences throughout my life of like crazy intuitive stuff that has happened to me. And then sadly, it kind of got like pushed to the back of me. Like I just stopped listening as much to it, to my intuitive voice. So after the session, that kind of reawakened that in me, which I absolutely loved. And I got to tell you a funny story. One day I was in a lottery store getting lottery tickets, and I always buy those dumb scratch off things. Whoever wins on those, right? So I all of a sudden I visualized her, and she said in my mind's voice, she said, "Pay attention." That's it. 2 words, pay attention. So I'm like watching this scene play out, and I'm like, well, what do I need to pay? It happened so fast. And I'm like, what do I need to pay attention? So I started acutely listening to like what I need to pay attention to. So the guy ripped the ticket off the thing, and the bottom of it ripped. And I've never, ever, ever seen that happen. And I've bought a lot of scratch off tickets. And so I said, that's it. That one ripped. Don't buy it. So I said to the guy, he handed it to me. I said, no, I don't want that one. It ripped. Give me the next one. And the next one was a winner. And it was a good amount. Now, come on. Like, what is that? So I tell that story because I another benefit, another gift of the session was it's awakened in me the ability to like pay more attention to my intuitive abilities. It really has.
Oh, Carol, what about, I mean, I'm smiling. My smile muscles are getting a workout today. This is so fantastic.
First time I'm talking about any of this, so I'm being real.
Wow. That's great. That's really wonderful. And you got a lot of confirmation about your work today, right? I mean, that was important.
Absolutely. I mean, I would love to do another session. Like, I'm still kind of basking in this, the one we had in January. So I you know, I'm going to definitely reach out to you in a few months.
Yeah, you know, actually, this is a good point to bring up. You know, these are deep spiritual explorations.
Yeah.
And they really shouldn't be taken lightly. And I usually say, you know, absolutely wait. You want to integrate what happened before having another one. Now, at the same time, you know, I'm having this immersion class for Beyond Quantum Healing practitioners coming up in just 3 weeks. And that's an intensive time because we swap and we swap and we swap during that week. And that's a little different there, but you know, because we try different things and we practice different things, and it's with different, you know, partners and things like that. That's really the only time that I'm on board with doing session after session after session. You know, just on the face of it, you know, you want to live in the world, right? I mean, you've come here to be human, and these are great explorations, you know, and they can benefit your life in so many ways. But, you know, they can be intense. They can take a while to integrate. They can take a while to completely understand. I am still understanding my own past life regression with Dolores Cannon that happened all those years ago, 17 years ago. It, you know, it had a level of meaning at the time. It had another level of meaning once I got into the work. Boy, howdy, did it have a level of meaning when Dolores died. It had yet another level once we hit the COVID years.
Yeah.
And there's even another kind of level happening right now as far as this whole idea of people waking up.
Yeah.
There's yes, and when you connect that, if you have watched and I know I'm going to keep referencing the telepathy tapes, but probably from here on out I will. But if you have, or if others have listened to them, you've been exposed to this idea of sort of when you share this higher consciousness space with another being, it's a quantum entanglement that of a type that is, well, it's profound, and that is one of the reasons why even becoming a practitioner, and some people become practitioners just for the experience of understanding and having that skill and going through the learning and all that. And some people go through practitioner training to become practitioners. And neither is better, meaning we love everyone to come experience this. You don't have to put up a shingle or anything like that. But those who do go on to take clients, first of all, they're very brave people. Let me just say that right now. This is not for the timid. This kind of work is not for anybody who, if you're the kind of person who really likes knowing what's going to be in front of you that day or in that situation or with that project, this work is not
right.
This work is not for you, because it's like, what's going to happen, and it when you first start doing it, that sort of holding the breath moment seems so huge, but I tell you, it never goes away. Never goes away. When you're doing a session with somebody, you have those first moments of, where are we going with this? Right. What's even going to happen? And then you could even have that throughout a session, even like with you, I mean, we had Cartoon World, and then we moved on, and I had no idea what the next place was going to be or the place after that, even within a single session. Right. But what I did know from the very beginning was, here's a woman who is trusting herself to have this experience. And that it sounds like a simple thing. It sounds like, well, if wouldn't everybody trust themselves if they're going to sign up to have this experience? And the answer is no, actually, no. A lot of people, they don't want to be weird. They don't want to be different. They don't want to fail. And sometimes people feel like they're put on the spot to perform. There's a lot of things that can go into this, which is why, with you and with every one of my clients, when I have a client session, I basically don't do anything else that day. That's it. It's a long stretch, and it's a long stretch to prepare to sort of get into a place where we're feeling integrated just on a human level, a trust builds, and then we can begin this exploration, and then the exploration can be lengthy, and then after the fact, depending, right, and some people after the fact, they can't even speak right away because they don't know what to do with what they've just been through. Some people have absolutely no memory. Those people, they're very, very few and far between. Most people remember great portions, if not all of it.
Yeah.
But it does seem fairly like a dream for most people. And then for other people, it just feels like I just laid on the sofa and made up a wild daydream tale in my head. But I'm telling you what, they are just as effective and profound.
Yeah.
If you don't dismiss them, right? And even if you do dismiss them, sometimes, to this day, Carol Ann, sometimes I get messages from people who are like, I don't know if you're going to remember me, and then sometimes if I can get to their file, I can look it up, and I could see if my memory is jogged. And then they'll say, I had this and that happen, and I didn't really tell you this at the time, but I didn't believe any of it. I didn't
Wow.
believe any of it. I thought it was all kind of ridiculous. And I even thought I wasted my time and my money or whatever. And then they said, but now I want to tell you what happened. And then they tell me these things.
That's great. I love it.
Sometimes so profound. And the gifts that I get back from my clients like that, it's just great.
Oh, I can only imagine. You know, I guess I would have to say I went into it really with no expectations. I just wanted to let it happen naturally. Like I didn't want to like think ahead or think or worry. Like, what am I going to look like? An idiot. I'm going to feel like an idiot. No. And a large part of that came because I trust you implicitly. I feel very comfortable. You make folks feel very comfortable instantly. Like they're, oh, kitty, kitty, kitty.
He's quite upset that I'm spending time with you.
Oh, I'm
not
sure.
him.
He's gorgeous, by the way. But yeah, so feeling comfortable is a non-issue. And I think a lot of the cognitive dissonance that we have is part of the problem, where folks don't want to open their mind, their hearts to things like this. Like as I said earlier, I have no embarrassment about it, sharing it. It's part of who I am. It's part of what I experienced and was able to share with you. And now I'm like reaping the gifts from it still. Like, and a few of them came right away, and some of them kind of unfolded and still are. So like, I'm still trying to make sense out of this being who was on my left. I never spoke to her other than that lottery thing. That was the only thing like I distinctly remember coming from her, was just pay attention. And maybe that was just like a message that I should carry with me all the time. Like, just pay attention to things more closely. And I have been, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, that's great. You know, I'm of the camp that there's no coincidences of anything at all. That, you know, the smallest thing, I think, resonates back messages, things that might, you know, the shape of a puddle in the ground, what book fell off the shelf if you walked by. I was at a store yesterday. I'm still pondering over this one. I was looking at something over here, and over to my right, these two plastic bags just came off the wall and landed right next to me. I'm still sort of thinking about that one. The storekeeper even said, "Oh, are you having trouble?" I'm like, I don't know what happened. But you know what? I took a good look at those bags, and I've been thinking about it, right? And oh gosh, so now I just got the answer just now.
Oh, no way.
I just did. Well, see, this is another thing. So even part of me, while I'm starting to tell this story, I have the little analyzer over here. So you know what my analyzer is saying? Why are you taking the time to make any kind of story about you being at a store yesterday? So I have a little part of me that's like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
And then I go ahead and do it because I'm following my intuition. So I follow in my intuition. I'm telling you that. And then there's these two bags. Anyway, let's just say I know exactly what it is now, the way and the shape of those two bags and what they looked like. I got up today and I didn't have any time to do it, but I spent a good amount of time cleaning out two different spaces of my home that I really needed to remove some items to go to Goodwill and make some space for some other things. And I had these bags of stuff. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, even this morning, I'm like, I don't have really time to do this. I have this, I have that. I have the interview this afternoon. I'm trying to fit this in, and I'm following my intuition. It's like, no, my intuition says this is what must be done right now. And I'm pretty good at that. You know, I'm pretty good at, and this is why, this is kind of a strange tangent to say, but it makes some sense too. In our community, we all know, quantum healers know, and you're probably the same way with what you do. when you have somebody cancel at the last minute, there's always a great reason. And almost always it's like because something else is supposed to happen,
Exactly.
So even when here's another one, we had time set up to have this talk.
Yeah.
That was weeks ago, and then we both got sick and had this stupid cough.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe your lottery ticket and some of the other things happened since then, right?
Weird. Yeah, exactly. I'm 100% on board with that. That's why when I said before, things that used to upset me for an hour or more, seconds now. And that's all after the session, because I just look at things in a very different way now. And I absolutely can't thank you enough for that. I have changed the way I react to things. So like if something happens and it's hurtful, I would have been devastated. Now I just like for seconds, and then it just quietly passes because of everything that happened to me during that session. It just opened I feel like it almost lifted a periscope up to allow me to see the sky the way it really is supposed to be seen.
That's so beautiful, because what you're really saying is that that's your higher self, right? That's a analogy for your higher self.
Exactly.
And back to the telepathy tapes. I mean, a lot of these kids, their conscious self and their higher, it's all up here, right? I mean, it's not in their body. That's why their body doesn't work. I mean, you've seen autistic kids, right? And some of these autistic kids are doing this, right? And that seems like to us, we're like, what's even going on over there, right? I mean, we've all seen those kids. And I mean, just today in the episode I was listening to, they're like, they're doing this because they're trying to feel their hands. Their essence is so disconnected from their body that this is helping them try to get back in their body. I mean, it's just fascinating. And the thing is we have so much to learn from them, so much to learn. I've already contacted so many of my colleagues are watching this too. I want to do some roundtables. I want to talk about it. This has great implications for humanity. It has great implications for quantum healers. It has great implications even for somebody who wants a session. If they were to listen to that whole series, they would understand the realms, the playgrounds, the things that are happening with these kids. They're happening with them on this really strong and really consistent level, partly because that's the only way they can communicate. That's the only way they can interact with others. That's how their energy goes, because it's not within their body. We are so within our bodies. We're so materialistic and we're so physical that sometimes we have the kind of opposite issue, right? So anyway, there's so much to learn about all of that. And you are so wise, by the way. This going through something quickly, this is, I'm reminded of something very, very deep. And deep thinking about even the Christ, Jesus Christ, walking this planet. There are those, again, I'm not a Christian, although I was baptized Catholic, but that's a whole nother story. There are people who say he was never mad. Well, then there's the story of the money changers tables and some other things like that. But what my real understanding of real enlightenment is that it's not that you don't get angry, because if you are still inhabiting a body and you're still human, you will get angry. You must get angry. You have to get angry, but it doesn't linger. And you see it, and you recognize it, you acknowledge it, you understand its appropriateness for you being human, and then you move through those next steps where you put it into context, and then you have peace with it, and then you integrate it, and then you move on. That you have been able to do that after a session is astonishing, and I congratulate you so much. That's great.
You know, and in the Bible, it talks about righteous anger. And, you know, in today's world, when I see these videos on social media about, you know, suppressing your emotions and not, you know, and I couldn't agree with you more. We are humans and we deserve to be able to express our emotions. That's like how healing happens too.
Yeah.
Healing happens that way.
Mm-hmm.
But now this session changed the way that I carry it. It truly has. I again, to reiterate, I don't. So, like, if my sister and I have an argument over some stupid thing, and I mean stupid, like it could be the price of eggs, it could be any dumb thing, I would like walk around with that for an hour. And in my mind's eye, my brain, I would be going, she's wrong. Why doesn't she see that? How can I convince her? And I would have this whole conversation. Now it's a few seconds of, well, I kind of like have a better ability. It just falls away, if I could explain that correctly. And that really started happening to me after the session. I don't know. I haven't been able to connect fully how that happened. Like, do you know?
I think you've been working on okay. So this is just my first take on it. First of all, I don't think I can really truly know, but I think I can guess. You know, you have been doing this work that you've been doing on the radio show with great intention to assist humanity.
Absolutely.
You have been you have been, you know, I don't really like the term working on your soul or yourself like that. I mean, you have put a lot of focus onto this wonderful gift of understanding wholeness and oneness and connection to all humans and all of that. Some of your programming, some of your wounds, and some of your trauma, if you almost think of them as, oh gosh, an eggshell. Now I'm going to reach back to your egg analogy, almost like an eggshell, this sort of thin thing that's kind of holding some of that in and around and on you. And what happened in the session may have been that cracked, right? Wow. Some of that just cracked, and just there was a pressure release.
Yeah.
And things are, and this is not completely uncommon, you know, that people have. I'm thinking of a man right now who he came to see me, and the amazing thing is that a psychotherapist sent him to me. And I'd only been doing this work for a few months, I think, maybe even just a year. And I was already impressed by that, right? Like that somebody would do that, because I, you know, a little, you know, I felt like a very much a beginner still. And, you know, and I was asking him about that. You've been seeing a psychotherapist, and I'll never forget. He was like, yeah, for 20 years. I've been seeing him. I've been seeing him for 20 years. And I'm like, well, why? And he said, well, I'm angry. Okay. You know, well, tell me about yourself. And, you know, what is this? He's like, I don't know what I'm angry about. I'm just angry. I'm angry all the time. I'm just angry at everything. I'm angry all the time. And, you know, again, I was so new. Kitty cat. He's angry. No, he's frustrated a little bit. He just wants to play. You know, but what I found in the session was he went back to a time in childhood, and what he realized was that his father was extremely abusive to him, even when he was a tiny, tiny infant. He was being smacked around as this helpless little baby. He was just being smacked around. And it it was brought to him, the entire answer that he has lived his entire life in that physical form, angry that he couldn't, angry at the situation that he couldn't protect himself and all that. And this was what his anger was absolutely stemming from. He carried it with him. That trauma signature, that resonance of trauma was all over him. He couldn't even walk when he was getting, his first bruises and beating up. Yeah. And the really great thing is, in the end, we had, much like you did, we had some angelic presences. We had some release of healing. And when that man sat up, I remember him sitting in the chair, and I remember him saying, I'm glad that, because his wife had dropped him off. He says, I'm glad that she dropped me off. He said, I don't even think I could drive right now. He said, I feel like a limp noodle.
Oh, wow.
He said, I didn't know I was so inside. He goes, this feels so weird. He just kept kind of going like this with his body. It was such a physical thing in him all the time. He was like, when you're clenched and clenched, he was clenched throughout every portion of his body, and had been for so long. He didn't know how to let it go. And yet he took the time to do a session, and his higher self, pretty much just like with you. Look at this scene, it started here, just like with you, with your asthma and that 16-year-old, when you're 16 in the car. And with him, it was, him being this very small child. And then it just was, the body. We talked about this in your session too. Your body is your partner. And we got to meet Carol's body as a separate identity. And there's a whole nother relationship there now too. But, the body sometimes holds on to trauma. Your spirit may not even understand it anymore, but the body is like it, and that's what most allergies are too, by the way.
Right. That's right.
Allergies are withholding of an assault within sometimes the fascia or just the energy body right around the body. And sometimes it corresponds to, I was eating chocolate when this thing happened or whatever. And that thing was scary. And you might never put those two things together in the world. And then all of a sudden you're getting ill or hives when you eat chocolate.
Yeah.
It makes absolutely no sense from a materialist point of view, but from the body's physicality and memory and how it stores memory. And all you have to do is talk to any massage therapist.
Oh, yeah.
They will talk to you about how memories are stored within the body. So yeah, there's a lot that happens in these sessions.
Oh, like I said, they're still a few months later, I'll just be like cleaning the house. And then all of a sudden I'll have a moment from the session that like I didn't think about. And I'll stop what I'm doing and go, oh, that's what that was. That's what that meant. So it's great. Yeah. I've never
I'm still doing that with some sessions of mine, and particularly Dolores, because she meant so much to me. Can I take a moment and tell everyone that there's going to be a documentary out about this?
Oh, go right ahead. I'm going to give you this.
Well, she's off. So there's going to be, I don't even, it's a French colleague of mine. Her name's Coralie Roederer. And the short story is Coralie does this work. She actually learned from Dolores Cannon many years ago, set the work aside for a really long time, wanted to get back into the work, and she couldn't get a hold of the administration over at QHHT, ended up talking to me. We had her come over and participate in our support forum and with us at quantumhealers.com. She quickly found her footing, became a fantastic practitioner. And a little while ago, she had a filmmaker come and have a session. And his session was so fantastic. And he was so blown away by the work that he decided to film a documentary. Now, so this is about Coralie, about quantum healing, but it's also about Dolores Cannon, because of course she taught Coralie, and then they invited me to participate. And I have about a 15 minute total input into this documentary where I talk about Dolores, where I talk about BQH, but also, and guess what? This is so much fun to tell you, Carol Ann. I never, even though I said I would do it a number of times, I again, following my intuition, I never released a single phrase, a single word from my session with Dolores Cannon all those years ago in 2008. But there will be in this documentary. So for Dolores Cannon fans, you will hear Dolores's actual voice actually leading through, I guess, so it's 3 parts, my session, and the session part itself is about 5 or 6 minutes maybe of my session, and some of the back and forth with me and Dolores Cannon, me as a caveman, and then my higher self, where I actually have a couple of things to tell Dolores. So yeah, I'm really, really excited about this.
Oh, when is this going to be released?
It's just now finished, and all of that kind of where it's going to premiere and when. So it's French, and it will be subtitled in English, except for, of course, where, Dolores and I are speaking English, then it'll be subtitled in French. It is, so, you've heard of the Cannes Film Festival, right?
Oh, gotcha.
Well, it's not, the last I heard, they're going to try to release it at a theater there and promote it there and have the premiere and the opening there, not necessarily during the film festival, but in the place where, of course, all of that happens. And who knows, maybe it might make the film festival. And you know what? We even have a film festival here in Wichita, Kansas. So, how fun would it be if it got to play here as well? And you never know, with things like the telepathy tapes breaking grounds. This is why I keep talking about it, where so many of these kinds of documentaries, this kind of work, people are like, yeah, it's a little too far-fetched for me. This telepathy tapes is opening up spaces for us all over the place. So yes.
I don't know why it's not even more like talked about, the telepathy tapes. I don't know why, like, some of the folks that I interview will talk about it like you, but it's like, it just surprised me that it's not out there in a bigger way.
Yeah, well, it's out there because of a few things. The materialist paradigm, the control that the speech therapists, and they don't want, they're so used to anything with the word telepathy attached to it just being thrown out the window as a cuckoo, charlatan, all that kind of stuff. And, we're not quite there. We're on the leading edge, that we're able to talk about this so matter-of-factly. We're on the leading edge. And, it's just not that easy for people who believe in the fact that, and it's so ridiculous too. So they think science is only things that can be measured and repeated, but and seen. But we have X-rays, we have cell phone signals, we have so many things that you cannot see that obviously have effects, and obviously, but they want to break it down and see it through a materialistic lens, and in some ways that just ruins it all, and they come at it in a bad way.
I agree, and I see that changing, especially because of the folks that I get to speak to.
Sure.
First of all, look at CERN, what they're doing, searching for the God particle. Come on, I mean, and then you've got Microsoft releasing 2 studies about quantum computing, saying that their quantum chips are now breaching other dimensions to get information. And this is coming from Microsoft. So I think that, and then what about the UFO community? I mean, that's like a whole nother thing. But there is an awakening happening, a realization. And that's one of the large reasons why I love doing these interviews, because Lord knows I don't make a penny from them, and that's fine. I just, first of all, love having the conversations, discovering and learning and sharing that knowledge with folks to help them, it sounds so trite, but to wake up, to wake up to a different realm of reality. We are not, and I have to reiterate this, we are not bodies with a spirit. We are spirits living a physical life. And the sooner people start to realize that, maybe they can open up their mind, their consciousness, to accept that these things are legit, they're real, they're happening, they're real experiences. I mean, I know what I felt on my arm. I know what I felt. It wasn't I didn't imagine it. I wasn't even thinking I was sleeping, and that woke me up. So like, these things are real, folks. And, I again want to just say that if you're thinking about doing a session like this, go into it with an open heart, an open mind, release your expectations, and just let Candace guide you, because you do that beautifully. It just happens very naturally. It's not fake, phony, forced. It's a very welcoming, comfortable experience. At least it was for me.
Well, thank you. And it's sometimes it's just fun too. It's just fun, and it's exciting, and it's something new. And there's, and it doesn't have to be, you can dip a toe into this all on your own, sometimes with some guided meditations. I've got a couple on YouTube. I don't have a whole lot of them, but a lot of other people do. But I have one of my favorite ones is called Seaside to Starship. And I like the Seaside to Starship. It's basically have a past life regression on your sofa. You just sit on your sofa, close your eyes, see if you can keep the cats away or the kids away or whatever, and see where you go, and just allow your imagination. And just even sometimes if you just dip your toe in like that on your own, you kind of start to grease those gears. You never know what's going to happen. Sometimes those little tiny things, many quantum healers, many past life regressionists will do something we call group regressions. And the group regressions, Dolores was very famous for them. She would do them in the auditorium when she would give lectures, or sometimes in classes. She would do very brief ones. And I'm talking brief. I mean, start to finish, they were 15 or 20 minutes. We're not talking very long at all. And the first fun thing that would happen is, because I'd seen so many of these too, I'd pay attention, because there'd be somebody that would hit the floor, somebody who would just sort of slump out of their chair and they'd just be on the floor. So we paid attention to make sure nobody was injured in that way. But, and usually it was a slow movement down. But anyway, we would watch that. But the realizations and sometimes the healings that would happen from these very brief encounters, or Carol Ann, I have stories of one woman in particular brought her mother. She brought her mother to a lecture of Dolores's, and I was talking to the woman because I just was, and then she introduced me to her mother, and her mother sort of was like, she was fairly elderly and didn't seem like she even knew what was really going on there. And we were talking about it, and the woman said, I just had this feeling. I thought if she came, she might experience some healing. And that's exactly what happened. What she understood was the resonance factor that would happen just by being there. And that's another, when you connect as a group, when you connect as a group. And once again, just to reach back into telepathy tapes, in the telepathy tapes, they talk about the hill, the kids who can't sometimes even speak a word will in their mind go to a place of consciousness and have extreme deep conversations, sometimes in multiple languages and in multiple realms, because they can't work their bodies. But that doesn't mean that this part is failing at all. As a matter of fact, some of them even kind of make fun of us because we're doing it the slow way. They're doing it telepathy, back and forth, idea to idea. There's no translating needed, right? If you are communicating telepathically to somebody who could only speak, Arabic, and you can't, and they can't speak English, but if you're telepathically communicating, you don't have a problem at all, because there are no words.
Exactly.
It's not really words. It's more ideas. It's packets of information. So these kids are already doing that, right? So the hill, there's a place where they say some people who've passed go to a place called the park. There's some other places. There's some places where some gurus or some of the meditating, Buddhist monks, they go to a certain mountaintop. Wow. But it's all here. It's all in consciousness. It's not actually real. But that's one of the reasons they meditate all day long, is they get their brainwave state in a place where they go meetups in another realm as a group. I mean, so those of us who are on the ground in bodies, we're the last ones to this party.
Yes, absolutely.
And, to reach back into some of your questions about why it's not more accepted. Same reason why archaeologists will hide discoveries that don't fit the timeline, the paradigm, the stories that have been told before. So many people are afraid of losing their positions, their jobs, their credibility.
The same thing with it.
Yep. And some people are afraid of losing their minds. Some people are afraid that their religion is turned on its ear. And that's very foundational to, actual reality to some people. And that can be very painful and very disconcerting. So you can kind of understand it. But, again, hopefully things are cracking.
Yes, I think they are. So I know we've got a few minutes left. I want to, again, give you the opportunity. I will put the link to where folks can directly check out this course that I took. So if you could send that to me, that would be brilliant, because as soon as this goes live on the network, I want folks to be able to easily check out your course and your programs. So what in closing would you like to say about either the session we had or recommending it to other people? What would you like to say?
Well, the first thing I guess I would like to say is, I know that you're still working on the course, but if and when you ever want to take a client, I want to say that while experience might count for something, and of course it does, the thing that's most important to feel and sense and want in a practitioner is an open heart. And some of those who are just beginning to take clients into practice, they are so excited about this work. That is a beautiful, joyful, healing resonance for you. So just know that, just because there's some people who do some kinds of work that maybe it's not as joyful for them anymore. Maybe it's some repetition for them before. I mean, hopefully not. I know that I'm still finding great joy in this, but I also pace myself. I don't do sessions every day. That I do one or two a week. No, there's no way. There's no way I could do that. So even if you're new, I want people to know that you can find somebody, even if they're brand new, that's right for them using our directory service. Or maybe Carol Ann someday will be ready to say that she's ready to do sessions. And BQH practitioners and quantum healers swap sessions all the time, especially when they're first starting out. They get some sort of practice in like that. They swap sessions with each other. So anyway, quantumhealers.com, we welcome all alternative healers, all of them. If you're a theta healer, if you're a life coach, if you're a tarot card reader, if you're a medium, if you're a Reiki practitioner, a sound healer, we welcome all healers at quantumhealers.com. That's number one. We have a community where we support each other. We also have a listing service. So you can find our subscribing members within our directory. And then we have a learning platform. And there you can find BQH, and that's quantumhealers.com /our-classes, I think, but it's right there in the header at quantumhealers.com. But we also have another class that's called Quantum Connect. And one of the things that I hoped to address with Quantum Connect is, a few things. First of all, our very low attention span these days. We have very short attention span, number one. Number two, a lot of people don't even want to think about laying down and spending hours and thinking about trance or hypnosis kind of stuff. And Quantum Connect is a way to access some of this information kind of in a different way, because I found that a lot of people were saying, you have to have a session to talk to your higher self. And I would say, no, you don't. Yeah. You really, really don't. You don't. Does it help? Yes. Can it be fantastic? Yes. All those things. But Quantum Connect shows you how you're connected to your higher self all the time in a very fun way that has nothing to do with hypnosis. So there's a little practitioner course for available there at our courses page. And that's great for like therapists or counselors or anybody like that. Anybody who works for a service to others would probably find Quantum Connect a great tool to have in their toolbox. We are guru free. What the most important thing about quantumhealers.com is you don't even have to practice BQH to join us, right? I'm not the guru that everyone has to agree with me and do things my way. That's old news. That's the old earth. We don't do that. We simply support each other in how we wish to assist our clients moving forward for the new earth. So if you out there would like to join us, please check us out.
I mean, I think I pretty much said how much I enjoyed it, and it's been transformative for me and still is. So if anybody has any questions, you can leave them in the comments below, and I'm sure Candace would be more than happy to answer them. And I'll make sure they get directed to you as well, Candace. But I want to thank you wholeheartedly. It was
my pleasure and a blessing. Doing these sessions like this, when these things happen for you, that's a resonance that enters my field. So it's such a gift for me. So thank you.
And thank you. God bless. I love you.
Love you.
I will be talking to you again soon.
Okay.
Have a great one, Candace. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I'm sure you heard how transformative this course was for me, and this session was for me. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. And you are watching us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 on the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Please be sure to tune us in every week. We go live on Thursdays between the hours of 5 to 7 p.m. EST. We welcome a wonderful array of authors and mystics and all sorts of guests. We love interviewing them. So please be sure and subscribe to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled and give the network as much support as you can. There are no words to express what your support means to us. So thank you again so much. God bless. Stay well. And we will see you soon. Take care, guys.